Oh, hoi, hoi, cheeky monkeys.
Get on with it.
Toughy.
It's Bergkamp.
Hashtag fuck Dennis.
That's magnificent.
Hello, John.
Up and down.
Well done. Bye-bye.
Be like the Arsenal. Be ambitious. Come on.
Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast special. I'm your host Kris, and tonight or today or this morning or whenever you're listening to this, I'm joined by my guest of choice, and we know him in real life as James, but for the purposes of this podcast, I'm going to call him Cripsy. Good evening, Crips. How you doing?
How we doing, mate? I'm feeling bloody good. I tell you, opposite end of the world here. Very early here for me. I know over there it's probably just after dinner, I'm going to assume, or after a little evening tea.
Yes.
But here it's about 8 a.m. It's nippy outside, I'd have to say, and feeling good, ready to go. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited.
Good. You're more than welcome. What's the future like? That's the first question, because we haven't got there yet.
Let me tell you, another shutdown here and there. I mean, look, to be honest, the future's hard to see because every time people ask me, it changes. That's the problem with wondering about the future. I like to say that we're back playing football, but we're not. I wish we were, but we're not, unfortunately. It's lovely. It's lovely when people think we're really in the future, because there's people that genuinely believe we're in the future, and I am very concerned when they do say that. However, it's nice. Look, you guys come to Australia. I tell everyone to come. Don't come now. Just come in the future. If you ever get a chance to come to Australia, think about the exchange rate. You guys get a mad deal when coming to Australia with the exchange rates. I say US as well. Get on down. Come on out in Australia. It's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, we've got one of our members, Dom. He's a personal trainer by he's probably got a more technical sports therapist. That's the technical term. But he lives in Oz, and he's just spent about a year in Canada with one of our other guys who we pod with. So
right.
we're worldwide.
Yes,
we'll get there. We'll get to Oz one day.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you for coming on. We should say off the outset of recording this podcast, we are doing a few specials at the moment because, as Crips just referred to and mentioned too, there's no football. So we haven't really got any Arsenal to talk about. So we thought it's a good time to get some specials done and have a look at some other things that are in and around football. We'd be remiss not to touch on the current events. So, Crips, I mean, what's it like in Oz? We're obviously one of the few countries that have decided that we can do things at our own pace, whereas most of the other countries are ahead of time. What's the situation like in Oz with regards to this virus at the moment? How are things on the daily basis over there?
You know, I think it's really interesting. It's an ever-changing scenario. You say something, and then 20 minutes later, it's completely different. I think what the biggest change. I'll talk about sport. I think referencing sport here is important. I think everyone understands sport. It's a team thing. It's kind of sport is so easy to recognise. So our national codes, AFL, Australian Football League, and the NRL, National Rugby League, they have both ticked off to say we're going to play this first round, second round, I should say. NRL was last week. This week is the AFL, so tonight, my time. And that decision for the AFL was delayed for 5 days. So they were going to tell us last week, and they've delayed that decision until last night. So it is an ever-changing scenario. However, to be honest, I've never been more excited to watch footy. And I talk about footy in terms of AFL. That's one of the two national codes here. And the AFL that's my first sport of love. And my beloved Carlton are playing tonight. And I think right now, more than ever, we need some normality to what's going on. And sport brings that for so many people. Sport is such a casual conversation. You can talk to anyone about it. Someone could be wearing a hat from the team you played the night before, and you can just mention to them about the game, and it's such a casual thing. And that's anything. That's any sport. So I think it's important that there is sport, and I know there's so many variables, there's so many things happening. But at the moment, as of right now, I'm going to get the time for you, 8:15 a.m. We are playing sport tonight, which is really, really good. Everyone will be laughing when the podcast comes out because it might get cancelled because someone gets sick. But And that's the reality of it. I'm aware that's the reality of it. However, it's exciting times. Schools are still open here. They've got a few different theories behind that, mostly being the fact that kids apparently are okay with the carrying of the thing. So it's only really a real frontline approach from the government being like, only a few people are going to get sick teachers-wise. Hopefully they'll quarantine themselves or look after themselves so they don't pass it on. Our shops are closing earlier, but opening earlier as well. So they've actually enacted a thing where people, elderly and people with disabilities, can actually go into the supermarkets before anyone else can, so they can get the essential supplies they need. So there's a few big steps being taken by the government and the shopping centres themselves, and being like, how do we get people in, and getting the supplies they need. It's a crazy world. There's not as many cars on the road. It's crazy right now. It's such we are living in really a once in a generational time. I think we may never see anything like it. And I hope we don't, because I can't imagine a world we'd be living to be doing this again. However, I know, it's a fascinating thing. I visited the States. And the States a couple of times, and the biggest thing was you sit down and watch the TV in the States, and it's all about America. It's America. It's America. America this, America, breaking news, America that, and all that kind of stuff. Here in Australia, we hear about China. We hear about the UK. We hear about, oh, don't worry, we know all about Brexit. Oh, we love that. Don't worry about that. We all love the Brexit. And we hear about the US. I think there's when you go to the US, you just don't know what's going on around the world. And the US is so just love themselves in their media that I don't reckon they have a clue what's going on for the rest of the world. But thankfully, I feel like here in Australia, we're good enough to hear about the international stuff. It's a happy place when you can hear that it's not just us. We are all going through a really difficult time. It's unprecedented. We may never see anything like it again. It's good to have that ability to talk to other people and be like, hey, yeah, are you finding out any recipes with the meals that you have in the cupboard? Like, how are you working through with the supplies that you have? How is that going? So totally unique, totally different. I'm excited in a way. Part of me is like, what's going to happen next? Part of me is a bit, obviously concerned. But, thankfully we have here in Australia this sport going on, something to distract us, giving us something to talk about that isn't just the virus, because we've all heard it enough. We all know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a mad time indeed. And where we are at the moment, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on was during these times where everybody is shut down and in self-isolation is the term being used. That means people are looking for things to do. And some people go to Netflix, some people go to painting or whatever it may be, and then there's nerds like me who get quite heavily into their gaming, and
nerds like us, just nerds like us, nerds like us.
And to those people who may not be familiar with your work, I'm sure they will be familiar with a platform called Twitch, which obviously is a streaming service for gamers and for people in general, it should be said. We share a common love-hate relationship with FIFA, and we'll come on to that in a short while, but just explain to listeners, how did you get into streaming, into the gaming sort of environment, because you do this full-time now? How did you sort of transition into that world, and how do you find it?
It's a transition is almost like, I think about it, it was a livelihood. It was I'd be at school, and my friends would be like, hey, like, we just got the new Xbox or PlayStation or whatever it is. Have you got it yet? Sure. I've got it, or, I haven't got it yet. And we'd head over to a mate's place that got it, and we'd pick it up. We play the games like we haven't played before. We're all learning the controls. And it's that was that bonding, bonding as friends and making friends and losing friends playing these games. I think it's really, the transition for me has been a long transition. It's almost it was my version of a sport. I can't play sport on a physical level, just due to a condition that I have that doesn't let me do that. and I can elaborate if required. But it was more so just to be like, right, I can't play sport, but I can compete. You know, I can compete gaming level. You know, I can play Halo on the PC, and I can play Blood Gulch, which I'm sure many people would have played Halo on the PC many moons ago. And that was, for me, that was my competitive. That was my adrenaline pumping. You know, I could get really around that. And it slowly, you know, it slowly moved from Halo, and I still love Halo, but FIFA, sports games. I love sport. I was like, right, what's a good sports game? And back then, 2K wasn't that great, so playing NBA wasn't that good back then. There was a lot of sporting games that just went up to the mark. I mean, AFL, which is our national league, was once made by an EA. It was once an EA game, and that was the best game we've had. That was in 1998. Let me tell you now, we haven't had a good AFL game for over that many 20-something years. So soccer or football is essentially the best of all of them, and I was really enjoying it. I fell in love with football before I actually, I'll rephrase that. I fell in love with FIFA before I fell in love with football. And I think that sounds a bit strange. That probably sounds very strange to yourself or others that are listening, that I could love a game before I loved the sport, but I genuinely did. And now I have a real appreciation for the real thing, because you can't just nutmeg people really easily in real life, and you can't pull off amazing finesse shots or, you know, great pieces of skill. You watch. I mean, I'm a Messi fan, but I'll gladly talk about any other player. The ability of Neymar, Ronaldo. You look at those passes, Xavi and Iniesta. You look at the Henrys, the Drogbas, and obviously Chelsea love my Drogba for the big game player. But you look at these incredible talented footballers all over the park. Even the goalkeepers. Manuel Neuer changed goalkeeping as what we knew for so long, you know, and I fell in love with the game, but you just can't do those things in the game. And you watch it like, wow, you know, these guys are doing it in real life and making it look like a game. So that's my love. And that's sort of where I came from and became a fan of football through FIFA. And I'm sure I'm not the only person, but I'm sure I'm probably not I'm not a part of the majority. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely well said. And in terms of the actual sort of streaming experience itself, is quite, I mean, I found streaming, not, I wouldn't say recently, but within the last year, I'd watched sort of YouTube and whatnot, but I found some of the big content creators, mainly through trying to get better at FIFA. And that's kind of where my love for it developed. And now I just follow a small select crew. And I stumbled across your channel, obviously on Twitch. It must be quite hard to find essentially a niche, particularly when you're playing a game like FIFA, where you've got so much competition. And for those people that sort of may not know, there's quite a lot of EA-based content creators. There's a lot of very anti-EA-based content creators. And there's different types and personalities, some very big and some very small. How do you, your channel's very unique, especially with the new rebrand that you just recently had. Like, how do you sort of find that you can get that niche audience? And one of the biggest things that I find, to me, is an art form for any of you guys, is you're able to read the bollocks that people like me put in a chat whilst you're playing the game at a high level. Like, just talk to us a bit about how you build a community and how you find gaming and make yourself separate from others.
I think it's so hard. I mean, I think it helps I'm from Australia. I genuinely believe that people love Australians. It's just that broad being like, Aussies are cool, like Australian people are cool, and you know, they swear and it doesn't matter, and they drop the C-bomb because it's a casual thing. You know, it's a casual thing that happens here. I think for me, I was very fortunate. I was hanging around, I should say, in a couple of FIFA streams, and they all said you should stream. You something you should stream. And I started and look, I didn't have thousands of viewers. I didn't even have 100. I don't have 1,000 viewers now. You know, I had less than 5 viewers, I remember. And just I stayed supporting the people that told me, you know, that they said you should stream, and I didn't disconnect myself from them, and they sort of helped me out, and they said, man, if you guys don't know, this guy's just started streaming, chuck him a follow and hang out. And you know, that doesn't change. Like, you could have a person that has 30,000 viewers. You could say, go and follow this person. You might get 10 followers. One of them might come into the stream. So it's not just like it's not a free like, oh, here's 30,000 viewers. Like, it doesn't work like that, obviously. But I had certainly had some help on the way. And I think, I'm forever thankful for their support, and they continue to support those guys. But you look at, I mean, how do you describe the journey? How do you describe the situation? It's so hard I want to talk to the chat. That's my goal, is to be as, I guess, open with the community that I have, answer as many questions as I can. And if that means, I'm getting to 99 of 100 and I'm conceding a goal, then I'm happy. And I'll be pissed off at the time. Like, I shouldn't have read the chat on, concede a goal. But for me, that's the key. That's the key, is that I would not have the opportunity to do this as a full-time job if I wasn't communicating with the audience. Now, I look at the guys, I'll name a few that some people will know: Castro, Bateson. You start looking at Buck Army, who's now, seriously hitting high viewership, Nick Tumiante, all those kind of guys. There comes a point where it's physically impossible to read the chat. It's just no matter what you put in place, you put a slow mode which slows down the chat. You put in this ability where it's subscribers only, so people that pay the monthly subscription to the channel to support the channel are now, they're the only ones that can type. There still becomes a point where it's physically impossible to read. And until I get to that point, I want to answer everyone's questions if I can. And this is true. I've laid in bed at night and I'll have a moment of the stream where I'll be like, I missed that person's message, and they're a regular. And I'm like, I feel terrible that I actually miss people sometimes, and it doesn't weigh on me. It's not like I don't sleep about it, but the idea of being I want to get to everyone where I can, and it just becomes a point where it's almost impossible. And that part of me doesn't want to get to that point, because that's what I love. I love that communication. I love that there's people that are coming back to, like yourself. You seem to just pop up every day. I see you there every day, and they're the ones that I'm like, man, I don't want to miss today's stream, or man, I need to get this done so I can stream today, or whatever's going on. That's, for me, that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And like you say, when you see some of them, I was watching Dr. Disrespect the other day, and you see his chat, it's just constant. And I mean, how people can manage that, I just no idea.
It comes to a point where obviously people donate, and that's their way to communicate with their streamer. And don't get me wrong, that sounds amazing. Whoa, people have to send me money to talk to me. But realistically, I'm not at that point. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. So I don't want to change my habits. My habit is to read the chat, know where the game is at. So you were talking about how I read and play. If I've turned over the ball in the defensive half, deep inside the box, or the goalkeeper's picked up the ball, it's a goal kick, I know I've got about 4 to 5 seconds to look across and look at the chat. Because realistically, what's going to happen in that 4 to 5 seconds as the animation's playing for the cutscene, for example, for the goal kick or whatever, that's how I try and read the situation and be like, right, I can get a second here to look at the chat if I miss something, or if I can catch someone or something like that. So that's I try and read the flow of the game. If it's a tight game, I don't get a lot of opportunities to read the chat, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a perfect way to transition into the massive elephant that's lurking in the corner of the room, called FIFA. It's a very popular subject at the moment in amongst the gaming community. Fairly recently, it even stretched to essentially worldwide news when a popular streamer, Kurt, who you and I know, well to the extent we know of whom he is. Yep. He's based in Malta, a country I absolutely adore, but that's another story. And he was recently banned from playing FIFA, and some of us would say blessing in disguise. But that kind of blew up the mainstream media, and it's got quite a lot of content creators talking. And for those people who maybe don't play FIFA, the frustrations that we have within the gaming community, and there's been quite a lot of things going on with regards to loot boxes and how FIFA are marketing themselves. As a sort of a content creator and somebody who's playing the game for a living, for the majority of the time, obviously play other games as well, but that's a very popular draw. What are your frustrations with sort of EA, and so your experience? I know you know a few of the pros as well in Oz. What is it with this game? Why are we experiencing the things we're experiencing? Does it all just come down to money? And and just maybe explain to the people who don't know the Kurt situation, it's quite unprecedented that somebody can be banned from playing a game, isn't it?
Well, I think it's not unprecedented in the point of people have been banned from playing games, toxicity, all that kind of stuff. That's a big part of what's sort of changed, I'd say, in the last 5 years in gaming in general, is that Sony and Microsoft in particular, you now have filters on messages. So if I get a message from someone that's potentially offensive, I have to accept the fact that I'm going to read a potentially offensive message before I actually open it. Like it tells me this message may contain offensive content, and then I have to click into that to let me open it. So it's become a real shift in the last, I would say, maybe even 3 years, 2 to 3 years, where companies are trying to remove this toxicity, or they're trying to get around or stop cyberbullying in particular. Those are the kind of things that they're trying to avoid. Now, I mean, I'm sure you've probably played a fair few Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Call of Duty lobbies in your time in the last 10 or so years. Let me tell you, the kids of today would not be ready for the things that we heard in those lobbies and the things that were said in those chats, even at LAN parties a decade ago. I'm telling you, no one is ready to hear that. And I'm glad that there's no recordings of those things. So I understand, and I'll talk about I've talked about it before, but I think talking in this sense is a little bit different because the audience and just the people that are listening in probably haven't heard about this and probably want a bit of a broader spectrum. So Kurt was a pro player, or Kurt is a pro FIFA player. That's what he is. He's very outspoken and was probably one of the first pros to really go out there and say, this game is garbage. Like, this is terrible. The skill gap isn't there. People wondering what a skill gap is. A skill gap is essentially what differentiates between me picking up the control, someone that's played the game for a decade, and then someone that's never played the game before picking it up and understanding the game and scoring goals and winning games. That's a skill gap right there. Is I probably should dominate the game. It shouldn't even be close. That's the reality. However, EA in particular, probably in the last 2 years, have removed a significant skill gap. So people are actually that don't play the game as often and haven't invested that time are a lot closer to the people that play it every single day for a living, because EA have removed these skillful abilities or being able to dominate the game or be able to score goals easier or better for the reason of keeping the casuals to playing. That's the drawback, and that's the difficulty of, I guess, having a casual game that caters to pros as opposed to a competitive game that caters to casuals. You have other games, you look at like League of Legends, you look at like CSGO, like the skill gaps are massive. And they've managed to find a balance. They're like, right, casuals can start at a very low beginning, and they can play these casual game modes that get them used to it before stepping up into that competitive scene. Same with CS, Counter-Strike. Sorry, I should say. As the same thing, you can do this casual thing, and you can go to the competitive thing. FIFA is surrounded by casuals, but want this competitive money-making scheme with their loot boxes. I think even in the UK Parliament, they call them surprise mechanics. I just want to put that out there. They call it like Kinder Surprise Eggs is pretty much their example of what a loot box is. And it's a very rare that an esport game is a pay-to-win method. And I think that's another thing that Kurt in particular really ramped up, is that why should I spend $10,000 to get and this is 10, I'm not even joking. There's people out there that are spending this kind of money to get the best players in the game. So your Ruud Gullits, you got your icon cards, you got your Ruud Gullits, your Patrick Vieiras, which dominating games. Why should I have to spend that money if my pro scene's only going to make me $2,000? Why do I have to spend to get these cards? Like, that's not fair. And I absolutely agree with him. I think the majority of people that play, I'm sure you feel that too. Why should I put money into a game that I've already bought? I've already paid, here in Australia, it's $100 for a game at retail. So obviously it's cheaper where you go, but $100 is the retail. Why should I then realistically need to put in another $500 to have a competitive team for the first couple of months of the game? Why should I have to do that? Why is that even a thing in this game? It doesn't happen in CS. It doesn't happen in League. It doesn't happen in all these other high-end games. But why FIFA? And then you start delving into the whole thing of, well, EA want to make money on their licenses. They have to buy the licenses. That's fair enough. But they're now milking it to a point where it's like, geez, how far is too far? And you've got kids buying these things. It's essentially gambling, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I think it's really disappointing. And that was where really it started kicking off with Kurt versus EA. I want to say it's Kurt versus EA. It's almost the community versus EA at this point now. However, Kurt was very outspoken, and he said a few things which I think he regrets now. I think there was a few things that I think he said and he's come out and apologized for. He then got his ban from competing competitively. So he was given a year ban, I believe, from competing competitively. And then he kind of kept going and literally spat in the faces of the company in so many ways. He literally spat on a scarf logo on stream. So an EA scarf, spat on it on stream. Plus various other things. EA banned him from actually playing the game entirely. He made new accounts. They banned it. Like, it was a complete shutdown. Now, if I was in EA's position, again, I've talked about this before. If I was in EA's position, I would have not done any of that, because it's just brought more media attention on the fact that there's gambling in their video game. I truly believe that loot boxes should be removed. I think you should pay for what you should know what you get when you pay for something. That's a bare minimum in life. If I go to the shops and I said, yeah, I need a bag of rice. Now, in these times, a little bit different, but I want to get a bag of rice. I should be able to pick the brand that I want, how big it is at the price that's there. With EA and microtransactions, they say, okay, you can buy this pack. You don't actually know what's in it. And that's really what it comes down to, is that you're spending money on something you actually don't know what you're getting. And majority of the time, you don't get anything of value in return at all. So poor Kurt in many ways, but also he brought it onto himself in many other ways. I think that's probably a fair statement. I am of the awareness that he can play in FIFA 21. So when the new game comes out, his restriction is lifted from playing the game in general. However, I think he still can't play competitively at that pro level, which is, I believe, a blessing in disguise, because he's gained so many more subs. You know, people are spending so much money watching his stream, and you can watch it for free. Like, you don't have to sub to people. You know, you don't have to donate. That's what people want to do, which is awesome. Support the content creator. You know, that's a really good thing. But yeah, EA, in my belief, and you're right, in it blowing up in that media sense, it became worldwide news when Kurt got banned, because people were like, hang on, why did one of the best players in the world get banned? And it opened a can of worms. So I think it's a really interesting discussion. I mean, it doesn't really hit the news here. I don't know about yourself. We don't get a lot of gaming news in general here in Australia. It's a very minimal. Social media is where we get our news. You know, I think that's probably similar in all around the world, maybe except America, because they have a lot of college esports now, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It definitely didn't make news here in a traditional sense, and I can't imagine it would anytime soon. Thus, be the media.
Yeah, it's very true. It's the same here. I think a lot of it was more the social media side. The game itself, how do you find playing? Because like you say, I think the majority of our audience will be just casual players, because a lot of people who listen to this, you know, I may be wrong, but I doubt that they're pros, but they might pick up a game and have a kick about. They might not even be part of particularly the FUT mode or FUT mode, Ultimate Team mode, which is where you mentioned about the pay to win element. something that I respect about you as well, which I physically cannot do. There's two content creators that I find brilliant at keeping their nerve. Yourself and Swayback's another one. Completely zen. And we're allowed to swear, so I'll just say it as it is. When the game fucks you in the ass, as it does repeatedly for me, time and time again, I admit I'm not a great player at all. I cannot keep my nerve. I cannot keep my shit together. You played a game the other night which perfectly encapsulates this. I think you were 2 goals behind with 5 minutes to go, got it level 1 on a penalty shootout, and you just laughed your way through it. And as a content creator, one of the other people I follow, I've got him on as we speak, actually, Nick 2018 is another one who I follow. Weekend after weekend, just loses his shit at how broken this game is. How do you keep that inner zen of sort of managing the chat? Because inside you must be frustrated. And how do you see them improving this game? Because it feels at the moment like they're just churning out a reskinned, badly patched job every year. But because they got all the licenses and because it's pretty, we're just going to keep falling for it. So how do you manage the broken game that you're playing?
I'll be honest with you, and I want to say this. First of all, there's nothing wrong with losing your shit at FIFA. I tell you that right now. Like it is at times an infuriating mess, and it just at times makes no sense. I think that's the issue at all. Is how did that happen? Yeah. So just to reference your point, I was 2-1 down against a fellow Australian friend, which happens regularly here in Australia. Is that we match each other a lot. Just because there's not as many players here in Australia, and the ones that like the casual players are just playing, career mode and all that kind of, which is totally fine. Like I get there's that side of it. That's the incredible thing is we live in this social media bubble of being like Ultimate Team is the best mode and everyone plays Ultimate Team, but it's actually totally wrong. There's way more people playing career mode. There's way more people that don't even go on social media to talk about FIFA. It just doesn't happen. It's a casual game. So to reference the fact that don't like being ragey, don't worry about it. I know that Nick gets very frustrated and I feel his rage. Being 2-1 down in that game in the 119th minute, and I scored 2 goals in the 2 minutes, essentially 119 and 122 to go to penalties. I think I said numerous times to like, GG, good game. Like the game was over. Like it was over. If that happened to happen to me, I would have been fuming. I tell you, I would have been fuming if that would happen to me. 3-1 up in the 119th. Call it like it's game. Like turf it out. Like just kick it long, hoof it out of there. However, and then we won on penalties, which was and that was a 9 penalty shootout each way. But then our goalkeepers didn't take a penalty. For some reason, we went all the way through everyone, but my goalkeeper, like, whatever. Anyway, it was a drama-filled penalty shootout. It was great value for entertainment, I guess, or value content. However, the game makes no sense. And I think that's the biggest frustration is how do things happen? You watch people miss shots from 6 yards out, open nets, they're going wide, they're hitting the post. It makes no sense. A game is a game. I can't control which way the ball bends and curves and all that in various ways. So you'll see a player, 10 yards out. He'll kick it with the laces of his shoe, direct, contact, and the ball will spray 10 yards over. I'm like, and we're talking about the best players in the world here. Like, you tell me Mbappe is missing the target? No way. Like, that's one of the biggest frustrations when I think it comes to FIFA for the casual and the people that play it all the time is how does that happen? How is the ball pinging off 3 different defenders and then magically falling back to my opponent and going in there? It makes you're telling me one defender in real life couldn't clear that ball or bring it down, hoof it out. There's some sort of, that's the difficulty that EA have is they're 6-minute halves. That's the normal rate of a game is 6-minute halves. If you had 6-minute halves in real life, majority of the time the ball's not crossing the halfway line most of the time. Like, to be honest, so EA have to find a way that it's fast-paced. There's opportunities for people to actually score in these 6 minutes or 12 minutes in total. What I think when you talk about people that rage and how to keep it cool is that people can watch people rage and you can feel that. I like watching some people rage sometimes. I'll watch a little rage montage or compilation because I just want to yell with them. I'm like, how does this, why? Why is that going on? But for me, if I rage, I'm not playing well. I need to keep my head cool. And I've played competitive. I played this game at the highest level here in Australia for a numerous amount of years in the 2010s, 2012, 13s. I found that if I was raging, I'm not playing my best. I'm focused about what's just happened and not what's about to happen. And I think that's a really big thing for people if they're hung up on something. And I catch myself doing all the time, like, how did that? I can't believe we're in extra time. Like, how did we? But I'm realizing I'm still thinking about that. I'm not focusing on the new, on that moment or the next chance or the next interception to create the next chance. So for me, that is why I try and keep my head cool. And I think majority of my community and the people that watch my stream would probably be like, he's one of the coolest in terms of keeping his cool. Definitely not cool, trust me. I'm not a cool person. But keeping his cool is what makes it enjoyable for other people to do their weekend league. The amount of people that come in or play their games, the amount of people that come in and say, man, I'm just tuning in. I got you in the background because I'm going to get my games done. I'm assuming they're just looking for somewhere that's calm, relaxed, so they can get through their stressful 30 games a weekend. It's I'll elaborate a little bit about Foot Champs just so we've got a bit of context. Foot Champs is weekend league, which is happens every week for FIFA. Happens in Madden as well. So essentially, you've got 30 games. The more wins you get, the higher the rank you go. A lot of people don't play all their games because they just hit a particular rank that they want, which is Gold 3 or Gold 1 or whatever it be. And you get rewards for those ranks. Essentially, a lot of people just, they have some background tunes or background streams. So then they're not raging playing back-to-back FIFA games because it can get incredibly tiring and stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely does for me. As I say, I find it hard to keep saying. And there is almost a wider aspect to that. Like you said, that a lot of kids play this game.
Yeah.
There is a lot of toxicity in the community, even in, I think, again, to shit on EA a bit here again, but they forced objectives into Rivals this year whereby we're all sweating over icon tokens at the moment. Just finished all of mine this afternoon, by the way. Thank you.
Well done. I haven't started them yet, so I give you big ups.
Well, I dropped 2 divisions to do it, but, not intentionally either, just because I'm crap. But yeah, it does become sort of ultra sweat, and I guess that's where the enjoyment side of it kind of disappears a little bit. Do you find that when you sort of finish playing FIFA, like at the moment, you're loving the gulag in COD?
In the gulag.
Do you sort of find that other games are actually more enjoyable to play, or is that sort of burning desire, again, to quote Nick, who said this a number of times, it's his love of football that draws him to a game that he knows is crap and he knows is broken, but it's that love of football that draws him back? Is like your escape playing other games alongside it, or is it more just a case of freshening things up?
I think a lot. If you haven't played Call of Duty Warzone, and I'm not partnered with them, I was on a sponsorship deal. It's absolutely free on PlayStation. Like it's like the amount of people that are playing the game is insane. And if you guys aren't aware of what it is, it's just Call of Duty with 150 people in a big map in a battle royale. You drop out of a plane, you land, you loot, and you go. It's a real sort of. It is the most casual, but also can be very, competitive. You get to that final 5 or whatever it is, you're like, right, lock it in. My heart's racing. I had a game yesterday off stream. I was playing with a couple of people that are from the stream. We're in the Discord call and we're just chatting out. And all of a sudden we're in a top 2 situation. They're dead, I'm alive, and my heart is going through the chest. I was genuinely pumped up. I ended up losing in a 2v1 situation. Got a kill, but couldn't get the other guy. I mean, I blamed the game a little bit there, sure. But it was very much a Call of Duty in any other game. You can say Call of Duty. I mean, I play marbles, and that sounds stupid, but the marbles stuff is hilarious on the stream where people can just type in the chat and they have a marble that's on a screen and it's a race of marbles. It's something different, something fun. It's fresh. However, when you go, like during the week for FIFA, especially in Ultimate Team, there's nothing to do. Realistically, there's nothing to do. And especially in Australia, which is the rest of the world region, you match the same 3 people. And if they're not online at the time, you don't match anybody. Like that is the genuine issue with being at the higher divisions in Australia. So even if I wanted to stream FIFA during the week, I have to do drafts, which is fine. It's nice to play with different cards and different formations and play around. But I like playing COD because I can also play with the subs. You know, I can get people in that are watching the stream. I can get them in the voice chat. I can introduce, we can talk to each other, and we can play COD at the same time. We can play something different and fresh. And obviously my community is a FIFA-based community, but there's so many people playing COD, is that we actually jump in viewers at times because people want to watch COD. You know, people want to be like, I'm sick of FIFA right now. I'll come in and watch COD. And that was a really interesting thing for me, is seeing that last week, is we're playing drafts. And then I said, we're going to drop over. We're going to jump into the gulag. You know, we're going to jump on even into the gulag, which is I guess the 1v1 mode when you get knocked out of the war zone. And we jumped up another 20, 30 viewers, you know, and I was like, this is awesome. You know, like people are wanting to just watch the stream on a different game at times. And that's totally cool. We're getting to that point now where if this wasn't happening, so if the virus wasn't a thing, realistically, the next thing we're worrying about is team of the season. So this time is genuinely a very, very, very low time in the FIFA community in general. So Call of Duty have done the right thing. They've brought it out for us. It's nice to change it up. If I could stream COD solely on a stream at the moment, I probably would, but I would play my weekend league games on stream as well. So my midweek would be COD if I could, but that's just not how it works. You can't always do the game that you want to play. Because you know that your audience is usually set to a particular feeling or vibe, or there's a plan in place where they're like, right, let's do FIFA first and we can move to COD, for example.
Yeah, sort of finding a balancing act, isn't it? And I often think as well with the streamers, a lot of the time, certainly from my standpoint, is that I don't really look for the numbers. I look at the personality of the streamer, and that's what draws me in. Like you say, you could be playing marbles, you could be doing Microsoft Paint, but if I enjoy sort of conversing with either the chat community or the actual streamer themselves, that's what draws you in. And I find that sometimes you can literally just be doing housework, whatever. If you've got that somebody on in the background, it's almost like having a mate around, but you've got a stream. So I think it's I definitely recommend it to people. If you've never jumped on a stream, you know, if you just a YouTuber or whatnot, then do it. You know, it's good fun.
The best way. Sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say the best way to find a streamer is you can even look on YouTube. Most FIFA guys at that higher level do their YouTube stuff as well. So if you aren't able to, like, if you're not really at Twitch, like, I don't want to have to search through, you know, even though finding people is actually quite easy. It gives you people you could find. But if you want to get a feeling about someone and their content, jump on YouTube, just type in, you know, FIFA 20 streamer or you know, content or whatever it is. And you can find streamers, whether they're on Twitch or Facebook or wherever they are. They even stream on YouTube as well. So it's not like you have to go to Twitch. You know, you can find streaming pretty much anywhere now, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be doing similar, actually. Danny, who's our producer, who's in the background, has just let us know that we'll be doing similar via Twitch as well. Oh, you're moving into the modern era. Fantastic.
Oh, watch out. Watch out.
we spoke to, I spoke to a guy called Gaz, who's known as King Flipper, who's another small content creator in the UK. He's based in the Birmingham area. We interviewed him about FIFA, funnily enough, earlier on the season. So it's always interesting to find how different people manage their content and how they do things. Before we leave FIFA alone, sort of maybe for good for the rest of this conversation, what do you want to see in the next game? How can they, and I appreciate we haven't got all day, but how could we, what are the small changes that you think that could be made? Is it just about EA maybe giving a bit more back and just listening to their community a bit more rather than having this kind of, this is our game, we'll do it our way, fuck you, pay us? You know, is it just about that? Or is it, a lot of people are just saying, look, just fix the servers, fix the button delay. That's a start. Is it as simple as that? Or is it a wider problem that you think we're just going to have to put up with for a few years?
I think there's a real there's a couple of issues that really frustrate me, and I think frustrate people in general that play the game. One of them being, why give me a disconnect after the game ends and then I lose? So the game. So I had a game on stream, and I'm sure this has happened to everyone that's played this game. Like I'm just going to give an example that happened on stream. I won a game 3-0. I'm literally like, the game is over. The whistle's gone. Everyone's literally shaking their hands on the screen. I'm going to the menu. Like I have to go through the replays to get to the menu to leave. And I received a disconnect in the menu as I'm leaving. Like this game is done. And I received a disconnect, and nothing, like my stream didn't go down, obviously. Like everything was fine on my end. And I got a disconnect. And I'm not the only person. I'm telling you, this is a plague of a weekly issue for so many people. What really makes no sense to me is, okay, where is the match report finished? Like, at what point is the game actually finished? Is the game finished when the whistle blows? Okay, that's the result. If the whistle blows, the game actually stops being played. Blow the whistle, the result ends. For me, that's where the result should be written in the pen. So it doesn't matter what happens if I get a disconnect in that time. The game has ended. It's over. There's so many questionable things. So for an example, I'll give you another. This is one of 3. I'll go with 2 of 3. We're at number 2 now. At any point you're in a game and your opponent quits, why don't you get a win?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Sorry, I just smacked into something. I don't understand. I could have played 90 minutes against someone. I receive a penalty, for example, or I'm through on goal in a one-on-one situation. My opponent can literally pull out his Ethernet cable or turn off his console. I don't get anything if the game was a draw. What world are we in? I mean, we're in a crazy world right now, but what world are we in where I'm playing a game that means a little bit of something? I mean, it's not the end of the world if I don't win it, but why should I have just played this game and the result doesn't count if my opponent quits? It makes no sense. And I think that's a really big issue. However, I want to state that in the beta, it was fine.
Yeah.
So in the beta, we're playing this early access to the game. I would say a few thousand people would have got a hand on this. It's not that limited. But in the beta, if I was losing, if it was drawing and I quit, my opponent got the win. Everyone's excited, everyone's stoked, and all of a sudden, they changed it for the full game, and it made very little sense. And I think it's one of the things that EA can just address. And they can say from next game onwards, FIFA 21 or from this patch onwards, if you disconnect or if your opponent disconnects, you will receive a win for the result. It's a piece of communication that is it's so triggering. It is actually, I think, one of the most underlying triggering things that actually isn't talked about that much. You could be playing the computer. You could be playing the AI for an objective, which is, unlocking something in the game. And you can get a disconnect playing against the AI and you have to do it all again.
Yep.
What is going, it's so, that would be the equivalence of playing career mode and you losing internet connection in career mode and you literally get a forfeit 3-0 loss in your career mode. It's the exact same issue. So that's 2 points, and both of them are server related, which is game. Look, I think it's a game coding issue. I actually don't believe that it's a server issue. I believe there's a game coding issue because at live events, they have disconnects at live events. Explain to me how 2 consoles that are next to each other plugged into the exact same port that isn't connected to a broader server. It's connected to that local section. How can a game disconnect that close to each other? That makes it makes no sense to me. So I'm of the belief that it's actually a coding issue, and that one hits out of sync, something like a game will stutter or something. The other one will just go to and they'll call it a DC. That's my opinion. I don't have facts on that. That's just my basic knowledge of how two things happen. The third thing being, EA have a thing called the Game Changer program. And this has a lot of debate. There's a lot of debate around this program, and it's in all their major titles like Battlefield, Madden. I don't think it's called Game Changer in Madden. It's called something else. FIFA, I think Star Wars has it. Like Game Changer program is designed, or has been told to us, is that we've picked select amount of people that are at the front line in terms of they might be higher level content creators. You know, they could be pros, and these people, or not pros, but good players that do stuff like that and all that. You know, like that kind of. They don't want pros in it because they would be given a distinct advantage next year. But the idea being they want these game changers in to give feedback directly to EA. That's their goal. They want people to be giving direct feedback to EA. The game changers give all this feedback. They go to these events that EA host and spend serious money on to host these events. We come out of it 6 weeks later. The game hasn't changed a single bit. The game is exactly the same as it was. We're dealing with the exact same scenarios and issues that have been plaguing us for years. So the Game Changer program has sort of been almost muted. There's no talk about it anymore. There's no talk about this game changer, that. It doesn't happen. So where do people want to vent their frustration? They've got nowhere to go with their frustrations about this game. So they spew it out on social media. And I've done it too. I don't get me wrong, I'm not friends with EA. Like I've worked with EA in the past. I've told EA what I genuinely think, and that's put me on some sort of list of people that can't do things. I haven't been told that, but I've been like, it's not an official communication, but I've been, you know, like it's kind of like, wow, through the grapevine, you know, I've heard this, so EA aren't very good with criticism because they physically don't care. I genuinely come to the point where I believe that the people, so Foot Economist, a lovely gentleman named Foot Economist, Jamie. Now, I love that guy. He was a streamer, and he did a lot of the market stuff in terms of the new cards and the new promotions, and he would talk about the prices. Are they too low? Are they too high? People would buy, all that kind of stuff. He was then purchased by EA. He essentially got a job at EA to control the market and the content that comes out in EA games and in FIFA in particular. And he is such a nice person, but he doesn't communicate anymore on Twitter because he gets the hate. There's so many people that are like, this is the worst the game's ever been. Fuck you, you know. Like terrible. I'm not even going to repeat some of the stuff that used to be. It's awful stuff, you know. We're like genuinely awful stuff. No wonder why they don't want to post on social media. You know, no wonder why there's no avenues of conversation anymore, because it's physically not going to change. You know, like it's not going to change. They realize that the decision makers are up here, which is very high up. I'm currently putting my hand up high, and all the guys that are reading the forefront of this feedback and getting the abuse are at that lower level and are copying the heat. They don't want that anymore. You know, they don't want to receive that hate because they realize that it doesn't really matter anyway. They can't make the decisions. They can only provide feedback and it doesn't change. So that's my 3 issues. 2 of them are server based. 1 of them are EA based, solely EA and a corporate greed. I'm going to call it a greed because I think it is a greed. Yeah. And I'm as a fan of, and I played the first FIFA in 1998. So this was the World Cup mode. My dad would beat me every single game, and that's where my competitive drive came from. I think in terms of gaming, he really drove me to the fact that he would just beat me every time, and I got sick of it. And I would have to say now is possibly the most greedy they've ever been in terms of a company, and I'm sad. I'm actually sad for the casual fan of the game. Yeah, like I'm in a fortunate position where it's my job to play and content create, and the times are changing, and this is what I'm able to do from the luxury of my study. But, for people that play the game on a casual level, they can't get these amazing players in their teams. They can't play with their heroes. I'm a huge Didier Drogba. One of my favorite all times. I got him into my team. It's another level of excitement for me. There's people out there, the casual gamers out there that love Wayne Rooney, for example. They can't afford his card, his latest card in the game. It's too expensive. They have to put money in to get this card. I think it's wrong, and that's greed. It's coming down to greed. That's all. Yeah.
I still remember the very first FIFA game on the Mega Drive, FIFA International Soccer, and I think it's 1994. And how far the game has come since that day. And I blame, I'm going to call him out on this. We got a guy chap who's based in Canada. He's called Jeff Oliphant. Shout out to Jeff if he's listening to
Vancouver.
Yes. Unfortunately, he actually does live in Vancouver. Well, he actually lives on an island, so he's not part of EA. So
he's out. He's bought the island away from EA.
He's staying away. But he was the one who got me into FUT. He was like, if you had this card, and I used to collect stickers and all that. And, card collecting, that sounds great. And then he dropped the bomb that it was online, and it is a little bit like the smackhead who just needs another hit. Once you start playing it, it's just so hard to get away. And like you say, even if you're a casual, I think that's where the whole loot box thing has got on top, because people are looking at it now going, if people, I think some content creators are almost suggesting now that the EA have built this game almost to be toxic. So it is forcing people into rages and spending money because they have to get a better team because they know that they can't compete. And sadly, the longer it goes, the more it's starting to look that way. But we can but hope that we'll get a better game. That's all we can do.
My fingers are crossed every year. Yeah. I'm genuine when I say that. I watch E3, which is sort of the big gaming conference, and they bring out a trailer. And I look at that trailer and I'm like, I know this is no representative of what this game is. I know that it's usually just smoke and mirrors, because it is, it's a cinematic video that has been jacked up in graphics to look good for the main audience, which is fine. I get that it's marketing. But then I look at, I watch Gamescom, which is a little bit later in the year. It's about a month or two after. And that shows very early gameplay. We're talking really early gameplay. But you get the sense that we go through the waves of, we watched that trailer and, all the graphics look sick. And then we get the reality check that, realistically, it's not going to look that good, because it never does. And then you watch this GameCon thing and you watch the early gameplay and it's slower and it's, the passing seems real. There's that real sense of, if I make a smart decision with the pass, it'll be successful. And, the game slows down. And, look, tackling's really rewarding, because if I make a tackle, it'll stick. Because we're talking about a very early version of the game, playing, on a slower version as well, which is the head-to-head mode. So I'm genuine when I say this. I have so much hope every year. I'm always very positive at the start of the year when the new game comes out. Or the start of the new game. I shouldn't say year, because it usually comes out near the end of the year. But it's more so that, I look every year as a positive. Okay, surely it can't be worse than last year. That's my look at it. And they do surprise me sometimes. Let me tell you, they really do surprise me. And I'm sure everyone else, I'm like, there's no way that's still a thing. Or there's no way it can be worse than last year. And sometimes it can be. But I get as excited as most people would, I think, to say that, yep, it's going to take about a month until we realize that this game is just as broken as the rest. But in that month of learning is some of the best fun that you can have learning the game and making beautiful gameplay until the meta comes out, which is that sort of El Tornadoes in FIFA 19, people just lobbing the ball in and kicking volleys from 30 yards and all this kind of stuff. It takes a bit of time to get to that point, which is nice. That's the really exciting. It's the same with any other game, that learning experience and that learning curve of being like, right, here's the stories playing out in front of me. And, Call of Duty, I'm learning all the stuff in Call of Duty at the moment. I'm watching other streamers. I'm like, man, this guy's got a sick weapon setup. The Doc's weapon setup, I tried it out last night and I'm like, dude, no wonder why he's using it. You're having so much fun learning with these new guns, and the same with the new players and the new mechanics. So for me, that's a very exciting part of the year. And I'm again, my fingers are crossed. This year, unfortunately, I'm aware that the new engine doesn't hit this year. The new engine hits next year because of the new consoles. So that's that. I'm realistic in the fact that we're stuck with the same engine, which realistically means it's a very similar game. Next year is when we're going to see a change, when we may see a drastic change in how the game plays.
Yeah. New Xbox and new PS5 are coming soon to destroy our wallet, so we shall look forward to that.
Not saving,
yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap things up, it would be remiss. We're on a football podcast and we've got no football, so we should talk a little bit about the beautiful game.
Yes.
So obviously the majority of our listener base will be Arsenal fans because we're an Arsenal podcast, of course. Yes. But we obviously cross swords in the fact that you follow Chelsea. How did an Aussie come to follow Chelsea? How did your journey begin, and what sort of led you to follow Chelsea?
So it's really interesting. So I refer to football, as in soccer, to soccer. In Australia, soccer, that's the term because there's so much football in particular. So we have our AFL and NRL, so our AFL and our rugby. So if I reference to soccer, I apologise. I don't want to get offended. I don't mean to hurt people. It's just the tradition. It's just sort of what's here is like here in football. So soccer here in Australia is like 4th or 5th on this list of sports and not going higher. Like I want to make that clear. Like it's not increasing. The A-League here is not in a good place. And so I'm not trying to be disrespectful or try and piss anyone off by calling it soccer if I do it, and I apologize. However, I'll get to the story. A good friend of mine I went to school with, his name's Troy. Anyway, he goes, mate, United, big United fan. And this was probably, I would say, mid-2000s, so maybe 05, 06. And I said, soccer? Like, we got footy. We love our footy. We love our AFL. Like tennis, like cricket, all that stuff. Like it's so much. Like I have so much other sport to worry about. Whatever, who cares? Kind of thing. He was in the WWE at the time as well, so I just didn't listen to him for sporting stuff. Now, it's just not my thing, right? WWE is not my thing, but I understand the entertainment value, and I've grown up to respect WWE and all that kind of stuff now. However, I would never really take into account his careness for other sports. I was like, whatever. However, he sort of said a couple of years later, he goes, mate, come round tonight, United Chelsea. And I said, I know that's kind of a big deal. And this is 07, 08. So I think Ronaldo, Cristiano had just come to the Premier League or was going to, or rumoured at the time. I can't remember the circumstances, but it was not far off. And I said, bugger it. I'll come over. And I didn't say bugger it, I'll tell you now. But I'll come over and we, we'll watch it. And I said, all right, whoever wins, I'll go for. That'll be my thing. And Chelsea won that game from memory. And I kind of sort of said from that point, I'm a Chelsea fan. But it didn't really sink in until 2010. I think the 2010 season, we didn't like watching soccer here in Australia is very much a pay to win system in the sense you got to buy a subscription. I'm sure it is over there as well, but it's bloody expensive, or at least it was. You'd be paying about $130 a month to be able to get the opportunity to watch it, unless you go to an event, for example, like the casino or whatever it is, to watch it. It's changed now, but it was very expensive back then. So the only time I would sort of be able to see anything if someone sent me a highlights package or they tell me what was going on in the game back then on MSN, which, by the way, MSN, like that, I would get, people would nudge me and stuff and be like, it's on, or, you're missing or whatever. And so I think I don't know how it came about, but I think I spent more time at his place and we kind of we said we'd watch some more games and sort of really got around, not just Chelsea. And I love, don't get me wrong, I've become to love the club, even in this down. And I actually love this time. I know this sounds silly. We're not winning anything and it's, but this is for me, this is kind of like watching the club, and I think Arsenal in a very interesting position as well at the moment. But we're watching this youth. We've had, and everyone knows Chelsea's youth system. Everyone knows. Don't worry, I know. Everyone be like, Chelsea with their youth and their money. But it's so nice to sit there and watch these young kids play for the badge. Like we are watching Frank Lampard, who another iconic Chelsea player, sit there and manage these young kids. And he was a young kid himself. You know, he was a young kid playing in the Premier League. You know, he came to Chelsea and was playing as a kid, you know, and it was just for me. And I'm watching Tammy Abraham, Reece. We got Mason Mount. You know, you're watching Tamori. You know, we're watching these incredible kids playing this game for the club that we love. I'm just happy if they put the effort in. I know that sounds stupid. I know that sounds so counterproductive to being in the Premier League and to winning things. But like, these are 21-year-olds, you know, 20-year-old kids playing for the badge that they love, you know, and I love that. I know it sounds ridiculous because we've won the Champions League. You know, like we've won the league over these last 5-6 years, probably a little bit long. We'll go to 2012, 2011. We look bloody good in this last decade. We're a bloody good team, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying this different Chelsea team because of the band. I know it's insane, but winning for me right now isn't everything. Watching these players develop is so fun. And I get to watch the games now because of the beautiful internet is so awesome that I get to watch all the games, which is really cool, whether I watch them live at 2 a.m. or if I'm watching them, you know, or if I'm watching the highlights in the morning, whenever it be. People be like, you're not a fan, you're not watching them at 2 a.m. I gotta sleep, guys. I gotta get my sleep in. Otherwise, I'm a very grumpy person and the missus is not happy. But it's very much a really positive thing. So I will say that I fell asleep just before the penalty shootout of the Champions League final. Me being the younger lad that I was what was that? I was 15? No, 16, 17. I would have been 17, maybe a little less. I can't remember. Anyway, I was younger then, less wiser than I am now. And I thought to myself, I'm staying up all night. This is it. It's a 4:30 a.m. kickoff or whatever it was. It was bloody early in the morning. I was like, no, I'm too excited. The boys are in the Champions League final in Bayern Munich's backyard. This is it. My sacrifice. I'm staying up all night. And I watched Drogba's header, obviously. Muller scoring the 83rd or whatever it was. Drogba in the 89th. Chaos scenes in the bedroom. I couldn't scream because everyone in the house was asleep. I'm yelling into my pillow. I'm up and about. I fell asleep just before the penalty shootout, and I see Drogba in Petr Cech's arms just afterwards. So I knew we'd won, but I missed out on the drama of Drogba giving away a pen, and it was all scenes, 10 people behind the ball for the entirety of the match. And I was genuinely, look, I can safely say that I felt like I was there for the majority of it. I feel like I blinked and I missed this incredible moment in the Chelsea history, but I put in the effort. Obviously, I watched the Europa the year after. It didn't have the same vibe. I'll tell you now. It wasn't quite the same. I mean, it's good to win a European trophy, obviously, anyway, but it was, a bit flat that I fell asleep.
we've all done it. I've used to be. I mean, I still follow WWE myself a little bit now, but I certainly did a few years ago. And the pay-per-views, obviously, over here are a stupid time. And me and my buddies used to get together and have a pizza, and it would always be who's going to fall asleep first. Like, you have a group of, and it's to say like UFC is another one. All of the main events. I'm not a big boxing man, but UFC as well. All of those big events. Like, by the time the main event comes around at 6 a.m., you're just thinking, I just can't anymore. And the older you get, the harder it gets. Trust me.
And they say, it starts at 1 in the morning, for example, and they have 4 different fights, and then it's like media press this and.
Yeah, and especially if you get like a couple of, particularly UFC, you get a couple of sleeper submission fights or something that just go the full 3-4 rounds, and you're just like, oh god, like it's not easy. Fair play. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's amazing when you see one of the biggest things that went around the Arsenal Twitter community was an FA Cup final. I want to say it was against Villa. And you just saw all these videos of people all around the world celebrating and at different times. And I think that's the great thing about modern day social media is you can see people who follow the club you don't have to go every week to be a massive
No.
fan, and you don't have to, some people will never get to an Arsenal game, a Chelsea game, whoever it is they follow, because they might be in a different country. They might just not ever be able to afford it, but you can be as big a fan from home now as if you go to the game, because you've got everything at your fingertips.
I mean, we're in a beautiful world, I think, in so many ways, in how connected we can be, and at times we could be as disconnected as we've ever been in so many ways. And you're absolutely right. I see a lot of football Twitter come on the social media a lot, and a lot of those takes are pretty bang average, I'll be honest. I mean, it's like, and look, I don't want to broach the topic too much, but I mean, I see a lot of the Arsenal fan TV stuff, as you do, and I'm sure that really a lot of look, if it was in a Chelsea, if Chelsea had an equivalent in terms of that kind of dramatic headline chasing stuff, I would be as disgusted as ever. In all honesty, it would not be great content in terms of, are you fans? Yes, they're fans in a way. They love the club. They've grown up in a way. But, I remember how much they hunted Arsene Wenger. I remember every game, whether it was a loss or a draw, and if he wasn't getting the results, it's time to go. It's time to go. He's got to go. He's got to. Don't you wish you had him now? Like, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest. Okay, maybe it was a long, 20 years as a coach?
Yeah. Yeah.
And okay, maybe he was becoming to the end of his time as an Arsenal coach. By God, let him do his thing. Yeah. If I could have Mourinho still, and I know this sounds insane, but if I could have Mourinho still, I still would. That guy wanted nothing but results. I know that it was at times boring. It was boring for me to watch too. But he wanted the best for the club. He wanted whatever it took to win, he would do it. Whether it would be the boring style, I still remember the Gerrard slip. We did nothing for 90 minutes, but 90 minutes, we were time wasting in 8 minutes in. I remember that, you know what I mean? It took whatever it took. That's what it was. And I think fans are so fickle these days. They want success. They want, look at Sheffield United, for God's sakes, having a ripper season so far. I know the season's kind of in turmoil right now. Sheffield looking great. You think they're calling for their head when their coach isn't winning a game? Absolutely. They're just happy to be there. They're living this, any team that makes the Premier League, they're stoked to be there. But there's that certain level of expectation from fans. That's what drives that competitive culture, and that drive from the fans being we want him out because we want a better coach. We want a coach that's going to get us wins. The coach might not actually be better. They just want a change in potential philosophy, or putting in the players that football Twitter thinks is better for that position than, in the position, the manager that sees them every day training these positions. So for when I see that stuff, I part of me is oh man, this is great content because it's not me, it's not my club. The other part of me really feels for Arsenal fans that aren't in that way, and they're man, can we just give some respect? Can we have some respect to our players? Okay, they are being paid a pretty, I think all footballers are being paid a pretty good wage for what they do. But there's a hell of a lot more than just the money. They're playing for their careers. They play for the best they can when they can. I just side note, I can't believe Ramsey left to Juve. I just want to throw that one out. I just want to throw that out there. How has that happened? But so to answer the question, you can be just as a hardcore fan as anybody else around the world. I just want to throw it out there. I had a really surreal experience. I was in the States when the Barca PSG Champions League match was on. I was in the hotel room. And this is the Champions League match. Was the 5-1 turnaround or whatever? It was the greatest comeback in. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm sitting in the hotel. So Champions League games are on here in Australia about 5-6 a.m. It's 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm in the hotel room. It's snowing. It doesn't snow here. It doesn't snow here. It's snowing. I turn on the TV and there's Barca and PSG at 3:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, what I like Barca, mostly Messi, like what a freak of nature. But I was watching this game break down and unfold, and I'm like, what a surreal experience for me. I'm not even a huge fan of these two clubs at all, but I'm fully engrossed into this match. And it just shows you don't have to be at the game to love the game. You don't have to be at the club every week to love the club. You know, like you can love from wherever you are. If you wake up and the first thing you want to know is how was the game last night, or you going over a mate's place and as you said, have a pizza and watch the Eredivisie or whatever it is, you can still love the game. You can still love football, and love the team that you're following from wherever you are. And I think that gets lost so quickly on social media. Oh, because you weren't there recording the goal with the camera behind the goal makes you a terrible fan because you know what? Like, what is that? Like, yeah. I indulge in the game. I support the club. You know, I buy the shirts. You know, like I do the best I can with where I am. And I'm sure that everyone that watches football is the same.
Yeah, we're very much the same. I mean, our podcast has been going for, I mean, Danny will probably put in the chat how long we've been going for, but 10 years plus. And we were doing podcasts, you know, before podcasts for fans. Yep. Like nowadays, literally, your dog's got a podcast nowadays. Anyone can do it. It's easy. We were doing it. There we go. Danny's put it in June 2013. We started. Wow. A long time ago. I think, from memory, there's only one a podcast sort of longer than us that still survived, which was Arseblog, which is one of the bigger Arsenal communities. Right. But with the Arsenal fan TV culture, unfortunately, we were just the club that got lumbered with the first ones that made a lot of money from it. And I think we've said on our podcast a number of times, we're not competitors. We live in the same universe, if you will. Yeah. But we make different content. We do a post-match show, a live show every game. We do a podcast once a week. We talk about the games. And generally, we do a pod every week. But I think, unfortunately, with the AFTV thing is I think that we don't begrudge the fact, they made a lot of money and fair play to them. You know, they're making a living and we get that. I think that the disappointing thing is much like the FIFA community. It was the toxicity that developed as a result of their videos. And essentially it made our fan base a laughing stock for other clubs when actually the sensible-minded, rational Arsenal fans are nothing like the AFTV guys. And unfortunately, it was a bit of a case of people were just trying to get famous by getting on their channels. And I think you've probably seen it recently. A lot of the fans have turned on them, which, and some of it, not particularly nice. Some of it has got a little bit toxic, and a lot of it has got very personal, which is unfortunate. But I would also say if you're going to make money by essentially exploiting fans, you kind of have to take it a bit when that comes back to bite you. It's so hard these days when it comes to marketing and commercializing things. And I think, I watch Arsenal. So I'll watch a clip of Arsenal Fan TV or whatever. And I almost feel like if you remove the people in the background, you actually get a more sensible discussion. And I understand the point of a match that it's a match day experience, right? You've just watched the match, come out and tell us how you feel of that raw take. It's that raw. What do you think of that? What a win or what a loss or what was he thinking? Whatever. Even an hour break, literally walk away, go get a drink at the pub, or whatever. Come back in an hour at the same spot. Fans won't be, people in the background won't be there, right? Simmer on it, come back, and then tell me what you think. And that would, for me, would make it less of a spectacle than it is. I listen to it half for the people in the background carrying on like pork chops. And then you've got the guys trying to interview, shut up. I'm trying to, and that keeps everyone on tense. It's a tense situation. It's a frustrating scenario. You're talking about, backlash. I think everyone at some stage when you're in those positions, there's backlash to be bound. You can't make everyone happy. It's not possible to make everyone happy. But what you're specifically saying is they were potentially exploiting their fans and being how much you love Arsenal, you're a fan too. You would hate to see other people of the things you love being exploited
for someone else's monetary gain. That. I mean, that would be incredibly disappointing. Are they geniuses for how they've done it? I'm almost going to say not geniuses, a bit of dumb luck. I think it's a little bit of dumb luck in the process. But to their credit, they stuck to it. They kept the content flowing. That's the hardest thing to do sometimes, is to actually keep it fresh at times. Changing it up, doing different things can be like, I know they have different people they talk to now, so it's not just the same three people. I remember it was very focused on like troops and all that. Originally, it was always those guys getting the center of attention. Now you've got some other people. You've got different ages as well. It felt like it was not just. It felt like it was a very particular age group. Now it seems like they've kind of gone all ages almost, besides obviously people of about 6 and under. I feel like they have expanded. So look, I don't want to sit here. I don't want to sit here, give them more exposure or talk about them more, but it was more so I give them credit to what they do. And I think we have to look at their model and be like, right, let's not do that. But how did they get to that point? How have they got to the point of success? And I think, I'm glad it's not our club. I'll say it again. I'm glad it's not our club. But in a way, they are leading a way for other podcasts, other people to find creativity and look for positives, not just at the negatives. And sometimes it's a really good thing to see something going down. How do we get onto that? How do we make something more of what we're doing? I think it's really, it's a really interesting industry. I mean, I could go on for days and I don't want to, about media. And you talk about podcasts, everyone of them and everyone and their dog has a podcast. I mean, they do, but there's a difference between having a podcast and being around since June 2013 and doing your podcast. I think it's very different. And being consistent and at times, being consistent is just as important as being innovative. That's a really important thing to remember, is that consistency is so important now in social media, because you can have anybody can now click off and find one in the blink of an eye. They can find something else in the blink of an eye. So I have lots of respect for people that continuously put out great work.
Yeah, same in your industry, isn't it, as well? It's like you say, anybody can just surf at any point, find anything they want, and away
it's
they go.
It's our industry now. It's not just mine. It's not just, this is the industry that we're in. It's only going to get, bigger. There's going to be more people doing it, more fighting for the share of ear time, eye time, time in front of them. So, people want those headlines, and that's where you can see Arsenal Fan TV got their success, their AFC TV, got their success. But, I mean, the podcasts are now quickly becoming very, very popular, because people just like chuck it in the ear. You talk about it earlier. I like having people in the background. There's a radio going on in my lounge room for the dog. Now, it's not really for the dog, but you get my point. There's sound. There's this sound, being not alone, but you're not communicating on, you're listening. I listen to talkback radio more than I listen to music on the radio now. I don't know why.
Danny's always coming in with various different people that he listens to on various shows. It's a fast growing medium, and like you say, there's enough room for everybody. But like you say, finding a niche and finding something that works and being good at it. I think one thing I've learned doing podcasting, and like I say, we said pre-record, I was terrible when I first started. It's not an easy thing to sit either in front of a camera or behind a live mic and just talk for an hour. Like you say to somebody random off the street, I just want you to sit there and talk to me about a subject for an hour. It's not easy. And I think a lot of people think, it'll be easy. I've listened to some pretty bad podcasts, I have to say. And it's a talent, it takes effort, and it takes, like you say, consistency, and a thick skin as well. Sometimes you can get some awful stuff thrown your way, whether it be in a live chat. Like let's say we do a live show after each game, and we literally go live 10 minutes after the game ourselves. And we like to think that we keep it fairly sort of manageable in terms of our hosting, but you will get people that pop up in the chat, F this, F that, this has got to go, that's got to go, chuck this player out. It's very difficult to not react to some people when I hate to sort of sound sort of elitist, but when somebody, you might see it in your chat when you're streaming, where somebody will say something that's just plain dumb, and you're like, how do I even address that? Because it's just the most monumentally stupid thing anyone could ever say. But you kind of can't really say that because it's somebody who's tuned into you, and unless they need banning, of course. But
I mean, you've seen it where people come in and they'll say something that's a personal attack. I run with it because it's an extra view, and they're typing in a chat, and it's free content. That's how I get to sit there, read this message. I'll read it out loud after I've read it in my head, and then I'll be like, "No, I can run with this for the next 5 minutes." It's free. It's different. I mean, my medium's a little different in the sense that I'm fully expecting people to have a go at me as a person because that's all they see. They just see me as a person. Whereas your medium is talking about what's just happened in that moment, and people are heated. I think it's a little different in that aspect. And there'd be you could get some terrible stuff, not about what you've just seen, but also yourselves. I get that too. Unfortunately, it's pretty much the norm. And it depends on how you want to deal with it. I think the worst thing you do is explode and take it to heart. That's the worst thing you can possibly do, is to take something to heart like that. You either just ignore it or you play on it. That's my take, depending on my mood. I think that depends on how the FIFA's going that day, is depending on how I feel about certain depending if you guys won or lost or drew in the manner of it. I'm sure you deal with it differently.
We've always had our podcast has always been very light-hearted. We're okay. We don't mind people swearing on it. We're pretty relaxed. We're pretty chilled. But there will be even like the most testing of days. You just think, I just don't need this today, and you just explode people. But it's tough. It is tough.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been great. I've really enjoyed having you on. I think we'll wrap it there. But really enjoyed having you on. It's been fun just to shoot the shit, if you will, especially speaking to somebody completely across the other side of the globe and in a similar format, but on a different side. I know you said you didn't really want to plug anything as such, but if people are interested in finding you, do you just want to give people a little idea as to where they can find you on Twitch or Twitter or wherever it may be?
All right. Well, I'll just go with the Twitter because I think that's the best thing. It's Cripsy AU, so CRIPSY AU. So it's just. I think it is. I'll check that. Realistically, I talk a lot about FIFA, and I talk a little bit about football and that kind of stuff. But I mean, my Twitch stuff you can find through there if you're interested to hang on out and jump in and say good day. I mean, I love these kind of. For some reason, in more recent times, I'm starting to listen to more podcasts. And when you said, "Hey, I've got one," and we talk a lot about Arsenal. However, obviously, because there's no football happening, let's just talk the shit. I'm down. We'll chew the fat. I'm down to do that. And I'm really happy. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to jump on. But again, guys, you don't have to follow me. If you want to deal with FIFA shit, if you don't want to deal with FIFA shit, don't worry about it. I'm just going to have this conversation. I'll be honest with you. You don't need more negativity on the FIFA front. I tell you that right now. But thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate both of you setting this up for us too. It's been a blast. I mean, good luck on editing any of this. It was very quick flowing. So I wish you luck trying to put it in some sort of order and some sort of manageable conversation, because we went off a bit of I went a bit of a tangent every now and then, but loving it.
Luckily, we don't really edit too much because that would mean Danny has to do some work then, so he doesn't like doing work, so it's not going to happen. We will, of course, add Cripsy's links onto when we tweet the podcast. So if you do want to give him a follow, feel free. And obviously on Twitch, jump into his chat. It's a friendly, fun environment, and particularly if you have trouble sleeping.
Time zone is a thing. Hey,
there you go. Jump on. We have a lot of night owls with our pods. So and who knows? Like if the times can work, and when we eventually get our football back, when Arsenal play Chelsea again, we'd be happy to have you back on. Perhaps try and get you on for a live show. So that'd be good times to have.
That'd be kind of cool, actually. That'd be very cool. No, thank you. Hey, thank you, both of you, for being involved and getting involved in the community as well. It's always lovely to see some regular faces. It's really, really cool. I mean, I'm gonna send this to everyone that I know and be like, guys, I was on a podcast. Like, I was actually on a podcast. Like, hold on a second. And we don't even just talk about FIFA. Like, we talk about football in so many ways. So once again, thank you for having me. And next time Chelsea play Arsenal, which could be in a little bit of time, unfortunately.
Could be a while. Yeah.
Could be a while. Even if it's 2 a.m., I reckon I could find a way. We could do a bit of a live post-match or mid-match or whatever it be.
Sounds good. Our people will talk to your people and we'll meet in the middle. But it's been a pleasure. Obviously, stay safe, you and the family and Robert the dog. Look after yourself, and obviously I'll catch you in streams. But thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Have a great time.
Lovely, and thank you to our listeners. Thanks for tuning in. As always, my name is Kris, as you know. Thank you very much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back with another pod special very soon. The football might be stopped, but we'll still give you some content. Don't worry, listeners. So thanks, as always, for Danny behind the scenes, pressing the buttons. Thanks to Cripsy again, and we'll speak to you very soon.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Splendid business.
Get down, dog.